All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about something that's so much more than just trucks and boxes. It's really about compassion in action. We're going to explore humanitarian logistics, but we're looking at it through the lens of stewardship. You know, how getting the right aid to the right people at exactly the right time is a really profound act of service. You know, this analogy of a shepherd guiding a flock, it just gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? It frames this whole discussion perfectly, because this isn't about cold, hard numbers and efficiency reports. No, it's about protective, intentional care, right in the middle of chaos. So why does this matter so much? Before we get into all the nuts and bolts, it's absolutely crucial to understand the vision, the heart behind this mission. It's the why that fuels every single decision that follows. What's really interesting is how we tend to look at this kind of work. There's this common misconception that managing all these resources is just, administrative paperwork. But the reality? Oh, it's so much more profound. It's a spiritual responsibility. It's a tangible way to show faithfulness and actually reflect God's care for people when they are at their most vulnerable. So here's the crucial point. The ultimate goal isn't just about being efficient. It's about demonstration. Every single box that's delivered, every volunteer that's coordinated, it's all part of a much larger system. A system that's designed to meet human needs in a way that actually demonstrates God's care and provision for his people. Okay, so now that we have the why firmly in place, let's start to map out the what, right? Just like a shepherd has to know the terrain inside and out, we need to understand the core concepts that really define this world of humanitarian aid. So first up, let's get a really clear definition of logistics itself. At its core, it's the engine. It's the engine that moves help from where it is to where it's desperately needed. It involves all the careful planning and control of everything, from food and water all the way to medical supplies. And that engine, it doesn't operate in a vacuum. It works within this much larger framework that we call the supply chain. And this isn't just one organization we're talking about. It's the entire web, all the partners, the donors, the volunteers, the transportation systems, all working together to deliver that aid. This brings us to a really critical question. It's something that every single humanitarian organization, whether it's big or small, has to face. With all of these moving parts, what is the one hurdle that consistently, time and time again, proves to be the most difficult? And the answer is what's known as the last mile challenge. See, it's one thing to fly a plane full of aid into a country's capital city, but it's that final leg of the journey, getting it across a flooded river, up a damaged mountain road, or maybe even carried by hand into a remote village, that is the most critical and honestly the most complex part of the entire operation. This is where compassion truly meets the pavement. Okay, so knowing the terrain is one thing, but a good shepherd, they always have a strategy. It's just not enough to understand all the concepts. We have to translate that understanding into practical, actionable plans. So here are 3 actionable steps that your group or ministry can take right now. First, create a simple plan. Second, and this one is so key, build relationships before a crisis hits. And third, train your volunteers, not just for the practical tasks, but also for the spiritual pressure they're absolutely going to face. This kind of preparation, well, it's an act of faith and foresight, not fear. You know, one of the most effective strategies out there is something called pre-positioning supplies. Just imagine having warehouses with clean water, blankets, and medical kits already sitting in a hurricane-prone region before the storm even forms. By storing these essentials in strategic locations, you can literally cut response times from days down to mere hours. It's all about being ready to act instantly. But of course, the journey is never without its challenges. The storm will come. So let's take a look at some common issues and, more importantly, how a good shepherd's strategy can help us weather them. A frequent issue you see after a disaster is a lack of coordination. It leads to wasted effort, duplication, or even big gaps in aid. So what's the strategic solution? Well, it's to build a resilient network. And this goes right back to what we just said, building those relationships before a crisis. By having multiple partners and suppliers already identified beforehand, you create a system that has the redundancy it needs to adapt when things go wrong. Okay, and finally, let's look ahead. A good shepherd is always scanning the horizon, right? So how is the landscape of humanitarian logistics changing, and how can we prepare ourselves to guide the flock in the future? Technology is offering some absolutely incredible new tools. Things like blockchain can provide total transparency for donations, so you know exactly where your money goes. AI can help us predict where needs will be greatest before disaster even strikes.
And at the same time, there's a vital, growing focus on sustainability, making sure our aid efforts don't harm the very environment we're working in. When used wisely, these tools can really enhance our stewardship and amplify our impact.
As we think about impact, this powerful quote from Corrie ten Boom just reminds us of what the ultimate goal really is. It's about what we give. It's about how we serve and the love we put into action. Effective logistics, well, that's simply a tool to make that donation of service possible. So I'll leave you with this final thought. It's really a question for all of us. Whether you're managing a massive international operation or a small church pantry, every single act of planning, every relationship you build, and every resource you steward wisely today is preparing you to be the shepherd that's needed when the storm comes tomorrow.